Hey, you all, this is Paige Martin from Paige Martin Books and Art and the Handmade Dolls app. This morning we have Carl Roberts, who is a storyteller and writer, and I've been following his work on Instagram for a very long time. He works with Barbie dolls, and we're going to find out more about these scenes that he puts in Barbie dolls and these stories that he tells with his Barbie dolls. So first, let me just say, Carl, welcome to the Handmade Dolls app.
Thank you so much, Paige. I'm honored to be with you.
Not as honored as I am to have you come and speak with the community this morning.
Thank you.
I love the scenes that you portray in your pictures on Instagram. We'll talk about the different pages that you have, because I just found another page, and I think I'm following the page that I found second instead of the page that I found first, but we'll let the community know also about your pages. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you're doing it, because I think that's more of a question for me. How are you doing it? Because your pictures look much different than any pictures that I've seen on.
That's kind, and thank you. What I'm doing is I am reflecting a slice of the African-American experience from my vantage. And I began this particular journey in an unstudied way. In other words, I was not ensconced in the doll community. I did not know that it existed. What I did know was at the close of the 2016 election, when Trump became the president of the United States, I felt a great sorrow and a sadness. And I live here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I was going to work one day and I could not get out of my car. I was shaken by the turn as I perceived it in that moment. But what I now recognize is a continuation of a very dangerous mindset that was here in America. And I looked outside of my window while I was driving to work, and once I pulled into my parking lot, and I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know what this country was. And after I called my partner, who basically said, either come on back home or recognize that you are safe and go in, either decision you make is a fine decision. I went in and I made it through my day with the help of good people and energy, much like yours, Paige. But so I began this venture as a type of protest, and what I visualized was a need to express the humanity of specifically Black people, of the community that I identify with, in a moment where I felt and experienced a very diminished understanding of not just humanity, but specifically the humanity of Black people. So that's what began it. Shall I continue, or is that an answer?
No, that's definitely an answer. If you want to add to that, you can. But I would take from what you're saying is that it almost became a type of therapy for you, not as much of a storytelling therapy, but it was your way of presenting Black people, Black culture, Black life in a therapeutic way.
Precisely. It was, and beautifully put, I'd not thought of it in those terms. It was indeed therapeutic for me. And it was also my way of protest. I'm a caregiver to my mother. And at that moment, as I worked outside of the home, it was, I could experience more of the world. And as I've come into, I forgot where I was going, as my world has sort of gotten smaller, as my mom, her illness has progressed slightly, then I began to work from home, and I began to focus on what it was that I was attempting to say. So in the beginning, it was a lot, I recognize now when I look back at the beginning of the page that I began with, that it was experimental. I really didn't know the characters that I was creating. I basically knew, and which is why I love creators and creation, that the process of creating, and for me, and creation, if you follow it, it will change. It will find its own life. And as many writers have said to me, and as I have experienced, if one is developing a character, they will grow and soon be able to tell you what is organic for them. So in the beginning, it was protest. I centered around a heterosexual theme, a male and female identified heterosexual couple in their beginning, because I thought that it would be that telling the story through a, if you will, normalized lens, that it would be subtly received by Black identifying and non-Black identifying people, though my intention was to speak directly to my community, to, as you said, and it's sort of an aha moment for me, but the therapy that I needed was to speak to my humanity that I felt in that moment of 2016, and for the next 4 years specifically, was being devalued and ignored. And from my own need, I connected not to the doll community, but to the community that I'd created around me, and began to listen to family and friends in a different way, because, you know, as a writer, everything that you experience informs the art that you produce. And so I began to incorporate other ideas. There were Black Republicans. And my partner admonished me very quickly. He is a professional photographer, and he said the platform that I'm using initially, Instagram, is a visual platform. And I was writing, not dissertations necessarily, but it was so it was like, no, he had said to me, look, baby, no one's going to read this.
Right, you need to pull back.
And tell the story visually. So eventually, what happened with my storytelling, instead of screaming, we're Black, you would see Morehouse or Howard University t-shirts. You would see books. There would be artwork. Gordon Parks, whose niece, I believe, is in the doll community and creates. Wow. Yes, indeed. I don't, forgive me, Celebrated Soulful Dolls, and I'll need to look that up again.
I know who that is.
Yes, ma'am.
I know who that is.
She's related to Gordon Parks. I believe that she is his niece. Okay. And forgive me, sister, if I've got that wrong. Forgive me. But and so I was using miniatures of his art in the background and different ways to express what didn't need to be written. And so as I was learning my way, and I'm talking initially because my mom would go out with me when I would take pictures out in the real world in the community, and I had learned to tell stories visually. I began to look at books about film directors, and specifically, I would look at Alfred Hitchcock, who was known in his moment for storyboarding everything. And then when I would look at his films and see the stills, see the image, and notice in the image, because nothing is happenstance in a movie, everything from the color to the lighting to what is in the background to the furnishing, the set decoration, all of that is specific to what a character is experiencing and what the director is trying to say, what the writer, the storyteller, is attempting to say. And so as I progressed in my ability or acumen as it relates to telling doll stories or telling this story of humanity, I got better. And I got better because I was clear, I'm not writing a novel. I am creating characters, and the characters don't need to be, and those that are interested in reading want to see what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And they will interpret it through their lens, and the words, I love you is enough, or going to the Women's March, or what, that I learned to boil it down. And it became an interesting practice for me, because I do write, I am a writer, and to be able to shift from narrative to visual was a very fun and expanding experience. And there were a lot of misses. There were a lot of arguments with my partner, who is a photographer. Yeah. And one of the things I was doing, I was discounting the blessing of having someone who knows what he's doing visually and not listening to a word of. So I had my own journey. In fact, and I think it was a month or 6 months to a year, I thanked him deeply for all of his input and assistance and guidance. the other thing I really wanted to say, Paige, and I'm really jazz-like in this moment. I'm not sure if I'm answering or not, but I remember how touched I was by the ads of Ralph Lauren, and not just the ads, but the world that he seemed to create. By creating an aspirational, in those moments, and to my experience, closed, because in that moment there was little diversity in fashion and in advertising. And so, but there was an aspirational quality to the visuals. They were telling a story that seemed to continue season to season with just these pictures with no narrative. I found that very interesting when I began to look at how the backgrounds and the environment or the surroundings told the story as much as the clothes or the main characters in a story. And then there was I guess the cherry on the top, because this is there wasn't any plan. I was just looking and seeing what stuck with me, what resonated with me, and then not copying it, but taking the essence of what spoke to me and translating it into a medium that I was attempting to tell a story in. And so that, I hope I'm being clear, but that was
something very clear.
Oh, thank you. That was something that was formative and necessary during my movement on in telling this story. The one other thing that I'd love to say was that when I was feeling the trauma of the 2016 election, or the outcome of the 2016 election, I had a collection of dolls. I had a collection of Black dolls. I had, I think in that moment, around 400. And I wasn't, my partner, James, and I, we were talking about this last night about, he said, remember you're a collector, because I told him that one of the questions you asked me was, how do you self-identify? And he said, well, you know, you're a collector. And I said, I never really thought of myself as a collector because when I think of collector, I think of those people who buy either dolls or whatever and they're unboxed or they stay boxed and they're in pristine, the temperature and the lighting is all conducive to keeping them in the state that they are originally in. And that wasn't a thought for me. I took them out of the boxes. You know, I sort of, I remember when I was younger, and read about the Bronte sisters, and one of the devices they used to write Wuthering Heights, etc., was they used their dolls to sort of focus their attention so that they could stay true to a character that they were developing. So years ago, and I'm talking 90s, late 90s, mid to late 90s, I would be purchasing dolls and I would be writing a story and I would say, okay, this is Jack and this is Jill or Bill or whomever, and not really in a traditional sense, play with them, but use them as sort of icons or focusing agents so that I could write a character. And so I had these 400 dolls. I don't know how, well, I would say the universe, God, whatever word, a good fortune, whatever word works for one. But I can't in this moment recall the connection that brought me from dolls and protest and Instagram to making pictures. But in some way I happened upon, because I wasn't, especially around 2014 to 16, I wasn't particularly interested in social media and not really to this moment, but I happened upon some picture of a doll and I had an interest because obviously I was a collector of sorts. And I was, oh, how interesting. And they were telling stories with these dolls. And it was sort of this, like a braid or better, like a lock being formed, that this idea that this angst and this sorrow that I'm feeling and the protests that were springing up around us. I'm not sure if you remember that moment, that November gave birth to January and the Women's March.
Yeah.
And millions of women, millions of warriors spoke up to that moment. Yeah. And so all of this was sort of culminating in what I can do in this moment. Though I could go out of the house more freely in that moment, I could not attend I couldn't protest. I used to live in DC and I was there with picket signs and whatnot, but I couldn't do that in the same way. This was a venue. So the universe, God, fortune, all sort of blended and conspired. They heard my call for, what can I do? How can I lend a voice in this moment? And that's how it happened. And as I say, a lot of experimentation, a lot of finding my way, a lot of poor photography. And eventually I found my groove. There still are on my initial page, the page that I believe that you found initially, it wasn't particularly scattershot because I started with the characters Ram or Ramses and Charisma or Carrie. But then I added sort of this coterie of other characters, some related, some not related, to them, and it was just all over. I found that I was attempting to focus on my main characters and then try to focus on their support units, and it just became frustrating. And I never felt in those moments the need to say, okay, I'm going to stop. But I recognized that I was getting away from my intention.
Okay.
And my intention was not, and I love some of the, Lord knows, I could call out names of creators now, but I love some of the serialized, specifically serialized stories where there's this moment and this, and they follow. I found that that was not particularly my interest, and that for me to do that in a way that I would be comfortable, I would have to have a script. I don't like the word controller. Let's use the word organizer. So I would have to really beat it out, all the beats of the story that I'm attempting to tell, which required, because in those moments I didn't have all of the accoutrement, the furnishings, the houses, I didn't have all of that in those early moments. And I couldn't, and so the way I was telling it was, if I couldn't show the party, I could show the moment before the party, and I can show the moment after the party and the interaction. So I was having to dance around and couldn't, and then I found I don't want to do it that way. And so then I said, well, what do you want to do? And I began to look at the Instagram accounts of actual humans and see how human beings, because I wasn't on social media in that way. I was really pulling back because I could see sort of the algorithmic negativity that was there even in those moments. And I began to see that people tell stories the way they live their lives, moment to moment. On television, in cinema, a story is linear. You go from beginning to the end, and then that's the end of it. I live my life moment to moment. The part of my life that is me as a son, that hasn't ended, and it can. We live our lives. So, I'm going on vacation. It's my dad's birthday. I'm just getting married. God forbid, I'm going through a separation. I'm experiencing this thing spiritually. And if those people who document those experiences show their lives and reveal who they are in that form on this medium called Instagram. And so after doing this sort of on the sly research, I decided that's how not only do I express their humanity, that like the way humans do, but I begin to tell a story that doesn't tie me to a linear understanding. So if I begin that so-and-so got married, I got to continue that stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I can simply announce somebody got married, and then the next thing I can announce and then show is how they're doing in that.
Yeah.
And then because that was my experience of the accounts on Instagram that were most interesting to me, and that conveyed who those human beings were, to the degree that they were exposing their lives experience. And so that's all of this was sort of going on as I was clearer on what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it. Initially, there was some kickback that I was gentle, and I will take in this moment because it's sort of, Erykah Badu said it. I won't give the direct quote, but I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about. All right, now
we know what you're talking about.
but I got some feedback around colorism in our community.
Really?
I got some feedback around European ideals of beauty in our community. And that instead of necessarily challenging those ideas that many of us, unfortunately, believe are normative, instead of looking at them in a way that allows for critical examination, I was told via a couple of viewers of my page that I was simply reinforcing that, and that wasn't my experience of what I was doing, nor was it my intention. And what I found was what I believe what I'd said earlier, that as with all art, you bring what your experience is to it. And so what I've learned better is that I'm looking forward. I look for loving and honest feedback. That doesn't mean it needs to be couched, and I would love for people to be respectful, but it doesn't have to be couched in any type of languaging necessarily. It just needs to be honest. And so one of the things, because of that honesty, I began to make sure that for my lead female character, that the fact that she lightens her hair is a conscious decision. She's very clear, and she will make, in fact, and how I did that was by showing older pictures when the character was younger, when she was in college, how she went natural. Her hair was in a fro, she would joke about, yeah, this is my natural hair color and things of that nature. Because one of the things that because I too am of a particular generation, one of the things that I saw as a difference from the 90s to the 2000s was, and please, if I step on toes, not yours, but if I look for your feedback as well. I want to be clearly understood. But in the 90s, from my experience, should one clip in or braid in some extensions, there was an understanding that you were wedded to that look because there was a story then, yeah, this is mine. And not that it's a look, not that it's what I'm feeling in this moment, but there is and not just that it's yours because you purchased it, but this is the way what my hair does because of all of the ideation around beauty and women, in not just in the larger society of America, but specifically in ours. And what I found that when I lived still in the DC area, I remember that there was this one beautiful sister. One moment she had hair down her back, the next minute it was, at her shoulder. That there was a freedom, that there was an idea that I can express myself anyway, in whichever way I wish, in whatever moment. And so I wanted to incorporate that in with what was being seen. And without writing a dissertation, the only way that I found that I could do that was for the character to speak honestly in breaking the fourth wall to those who are reading, to those who are observing, to let them know that she's conscious, and thus I am conscious, that beauty, as one perceives it, is personal. And what one does in a moment is what one chooses to do. And so all of these things that I believe are topical and important in this moment of our development and understanding as a community, I wanted to make sure were there in this world that I was creating with these plastic dolls. It was important for me to show, especially in Ram's family, in the male character's family, as in my own family, variation of skin tone. It was important for me to show the importance of fraternity and sororities. It was important for me to highlight patriarchy that is toxic to all, but how it is experienced in our community, subtly, with ideas of appropriateness and what is right from the main lead male character, and how he is moved from one thought to another understanding. That for me, it would be simple and undesirable to, with these dolls, with a voice, with an idea, and this is not judgmental. It would not be ideal for me. It's not my intention to simply, showcase, ooh, what a pretty dress. So-and-so's going to a so-and-so's party, or those things are interesting and are a part of the human experience. They're not my focus. And I don't think, at least for me, and I like nice stuff like everybody else generally does, but they're not that's not the focus of my experience on this earth. And I believe that I would have been disingenuous to my intention and vision if that's what I was about. So I enjoy them, those types of accounts, but it's not that, and I was sort of, it was suggested to me, why don't you just do X, Y, and Z? And that's not where I am.
That's not what you do. That's not what you do.
No, indeed.
And I, to be honest with you, there are people that, I do a certain kind of doll.
Amen.
I like what I do.
Yes.
I don't do Barbie dolls and whatnot. Amen. We were talking earlier about how people break them up and read and whatnot. I don't do that, but I appreciate other people. Yes. So when people suggest that, well, why don't you do this? Because that's not what I do.
Indeed.
And that's not what I'm trying to convey in my art. But I truly appreciate other people who do that. That's just,
yes, ma'am. Yes.
I totally understand where you're coming from with that. Let me ask you a little bit about the artistic part. How long does it take for you to build the sets?
Okay.
And how long does it take for you? And the clothing, are you creating the clothing for the dolls and whatnot?
I'm not actually creating the clothing. It's sort of a hodgepodge. Some of it is a store manufactured, store-bought pieces. The majority of it in this moment are made by amazing creators, amazing artisans who I met just through my account. And so a lot of the, I'm not the pinkification of Barbie, and I'm loving your pink outfit. So, but Barbie's pink world didn't fit a world that I lived in.
Yeah.
And so I found that I needed to go to artisans who could make for me. And when I use the work that they create, I always note and sort of tag the artist in my post to show deep appreciation for their sharing their art with me. This is, I remember when I began, I wanted to, and I'm going to get back to the set. So I'm really not cognizant of the time. And I will say this, that a friend of mine in the doll world sent me a question this morning based on my most recent post on the new site, the newer page that you saw pop up. And we were talking about meditation, and she asked for, some feedback from me as it relates to meditation. And one of the things that I said was that I use the gym as a moving meditation, and that also that creation is meditative for me. My partner James, he says I could not that he could not. The meticulous nature that is, when I look at your background and I look at the bookcases and it looks like I'm not sure if I'm seeing, I have my glasses on, vanity. Stop. But the pictures, the candles, the all of these things that you might notice in my pictures takes time.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I've not really set about timing it because my process looks like this. I have an idea, and the idea can morph, but I have an idea and I have a vision of what it is that will look like in a 1 or 2, and I've just been reusing multiple pictures, but in a 1 or 2 picture story. And then this is the best part for me, the research. So depending upon the character, I love looking at interiors. I love, backgrounds and design. And then I will look at clothing that would work. And then I will look at lighting. And then I look at the research that I've amassed, and then see if emotionally or tonally, does it fit what I'm trying to say as well. And then comes the creating of that set, the dressing of the doll, the hair, if it's a female doll and the hair isn't in a style that will stay the same, then the shifting of a design, then from there, because I generally don't live my life like this picture that you see. There's this side of me. And so then it's, what angle am I going to be captioning that conveys the emotion of what I'm trying to say? And then I've added yet another wrinkle page, and that is, from time to time, I will bump the set and it will fall. And what followed in those moments had been a series of curse words. And now what I've learned to embrace, and I think that even with my life in general, that when, may I speak bluntly and coarsely or no? When shit happens, that's a part of the design.
Yes.
So if I've discovered, if I bump something and the bookcase falls and all the tiny books and the plants, it's supposed to.
Yes.
Which gives me an opportunity to put it back, to look at what I'm saying. Am I forcing it? Is this organic? Do I need to walk away? James told me, my partner said to me in 2017, why are you rushing? Why are you putting forward pictures that you see they're soft, they're not in focus? You can't really tell what's going. Why are you rushing? And it is within the last year or so, I've begun to ask myself that question. Why am I rushing? What I'm attempting to say doesn't have a time limit. So on the page, the second page that you discovered, I just this morning put up the Valentine Day post with appropriate story, a line that explains it, because there's no time limit. There is when it is right.
Yes.
And so that has been helpful, not just in the creation of a photograph, but in the living of my life. Which goes back to meditation. Meditation for me is a tool of clarity. And for those who meditate, my meditation won't look like your meditation. Your outcome from meditation won't be mine. And I really do think that comparison is a tool of the devil, and that the general understanding of clarity and focus in a moment is the only outcome that I am focused on outside of the fun of meditation, because some can do it in a quiet room with the candle. Some do it at the gym. Some are doing it as they cook. Some are doing it as they clean. That to release the shackle of what a thing is supposed to be and allow the essence of the thing that you're moving toward to inhabit everything is the goal, not just of meditation, but of life, which is why I can learn how to study well in the 6th grade, and those lessons are still applicable when I have been decades out of school, because it is the larger, more general understanding that is actually applied, and not the, well, I study 20 minutes on this subject, 20 minutes on the other. That's not the point. The point as it relates to that analogy is discipline. That point as it relates to the analogy of studying is all of these other things that are germane or important to getting to a goal. That is what and so that has infused my work. And so to answer the question, I guess in a more fulsome way, I am not clear about how long it takes, because it is fun.
Okay.
And most of us, when we're enjoying a bowl of ice cream or some, my partner makes the best stuffing on the planet, I'm not calculating how long it takes for me to eat it.
Right.
I'm just enjoying it.
Okay. How have you been received by by doll lovers and doll creators with your artwork? Criticisms and all. How would you say you've been received?
I have received nothing but love.
Okay.
For those individuals who seem averse to humanity, because humanity contains sensuality, humanity contains upset, humanity contains joy. And if I'm using this medium, a doll world, to talk about humanity, then humanity or human stuff shows up. And so some people have a view that a sensual interaction between the characters that I have created is about titillation and not about humanity. And I think that that has more to do with ideas of what it means to be human. And if one, and I guess this goes back, that judging or gradating experiences that are a part of this human experience seems to be a waste of this experience. They are all a part of it. And so when I have experienced what I perceive as not necessarily feedback, but judgment, and there is a distinction that for me makes them a difference, I tend to not respond. These are the strikes that I give. I will not respond. And if there's someone there, I respond differently if it's an I am. If there's an I am, that's a conversation. And I will have a conversation all day long, all night long. I have no issue, especially because I'm trying to get to what it is. And I believe that that's respectful. If you're sending someone offline, if you will, outside of where everyone can read it, some issue that you have, I want to discuss that. I want to know what it is that I might have caused, if any offense. I want to know how you are perceiving it, because I can hear that and I can make adjustments that are in alignment with what it is that I'm attempting to do. If one puts something on the feed where people are commenting that is abusive, I will delete the comment and not delete my connection with the observer until it happens again. Okay. So if there is continued, I don't like the word negativity because that is subjective, but a continued vibe of I'm dissatisfied, when the choice is you don't have to look, then it becomes something else. And then I sever a tie, because that's not an energy that I'm putting out. And it's definitely not one that I'm putting back. So I hope I'm answering. That is, by and large, it's been nothing but love. And I have been heartened by the diverse communities that seem to vibe with these Black folks that I have created. And that to me, especially in the moments of darkness in those 4 years, and I could call out accounts, but if I did, I'm sure I would miss one. But so to anyone who might be watching this, those, and I'm being those specifically non-Black viewers, followers, and doll accounts that have been amazingly supportive of what it is that I'm attempting to say with my art and with my voice, have been lights in a dark tunnel where it is easy to think that it's easy for me to identify just by looking at you whether or not you're on my team or not. That isn't true.
Yeah.
And I am glad, I am grateful, and I am blessed that I have been able to experience that through the use of dolls. So.
Well, we are getting near the end of the interview. Okay. And what I do this or that questions that gives the doll community a little bit more insight into your beautiful personality, which is bleeding through the interview. So just a few this or that questions, and then we'll be out. Okay. It's about what you prefer over the other. Okay. So first question is Netflix or YouTube?
YouTube.
Work hard or play hard?
Play hard.
Online shopping or shopping inside the store?
Both. I can't do a this or that. They're different experiences. Yeah. And I look forward to the moment. Oh, I'm not going to be long page, I promise.
You're good.
Okay. I look forward to when both options are open. It's quite obvious. Online or home shopping is effortless and easy. And depending upon whether or not one is willing or able to pay for a faster delivery, you get what you're wanting without the muss and fuss. But there's also something about the socialized nature. I am though not a kid in the 90s, a young man in the 90s. And so I'm a mall kid. I was in
Mhm.
that moment where one would go to the, you remember
Yeah.
now, girl, stop
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
Where
I
you would
know.
go to the, and so there's there's something about both. And I'm looking forward to where we can sort of like bate in Spanish, like have the mixture of
Mhm.
both of them back, you know,
Yes,
into our
because
lives.
they're both beneficial.
They're both beneficial. Yes, indeed.
First Christy Barbie or the new transform Barbies?
Christy, when I was a little kid, and I am a male, I was from very loving parents and closed ideas based on patriarchy, discouraged from my interest in dolls, which a little backstory, which is how I got the collection. Because, you know, once you get grown and out the house, you remember mom saying, oh, no, you're not going to drink up all the juice in the house. So all of a sudden, for the next 6 months, all you drink is juice because you're grown and you're buying it
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
can. And so I found that I was buying these black dolls specifically because I was forbidden. As a boy, that is not how you present in play. And as with all things, I said, okay, and believe something else, as most kids do. And so Christy, whenever I was with cousins or friends as a kid, I was always attracted to the black dolls. And I'm saying that apologetically, and I really want to check that. I loved Christy, my first doll, because I was allowed a female Barbie doll. So I had the black, this is back in the day, in the 70s, the black big G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip, that was who's black. Then I had the Brad doll, which is the first, I think he was the first talking black male doll. And then I had a Christy, and those were my people. All of them were black, and that was a prerequisite in my house. And so the Christy has always been special. She's always been beautiful to me. She's always been the most interesting. And I think it was because her story was not told. In so much as like Barbie was the fashion thing, which was not interesting to me. But the Christy was, because I felt that there was a blank tableau upon which I could put myself or a story that I found interesting. And so that is my answer why the Christy.
Okay. Okay. I love that.
Thank you.
Money or free time?
They're both connected in ways that, in a capitalistic understanding, are not really extricable. It's difficult to separate them out, because one needs one to experience the other without feeling a bite. In Texas right now, there are people without electricity in single digit weather. Obviously, they've got some free time, and obviously it's not money that's preventing them. But I'm saying that going without basics because you lack money, but having the free time is not desirable. I would want both.
Okay.
So.
Okay, last one. TV shows
Yes,
or
ma'am.
movies? TV shows or movies?
TV shows. TV shows, because TV has changed.
Yeah.
TV has changed. And I mean, they are the long form. I love long form storytelling in television because it gives one the chance to do what I like, which is to build character and watch the nuance. I couldn't watch it during it was still in those 4 years, but Lovecraft Country, my partner and I just watched that. It is amazing writing, much like Toni Morrison, who is famously known for, who I've met several times. I love her. She's passed on, but she said something and continues to influence me about not writing for the white gaze, and by extraction, for the gaze of anyone else who you have to explain to. So as a woman, to tell a story from a vantage point of a woman's experience, to tell that, and to tell it without, well, let me put a footnote down so that as a male, you get it. No, if you're human, you'll get it. And to write in a voice that is free of a gaze that will alter, I find is what's going on in television, that there are stories about young people that is not really concerned about those of a particular generation understanding the lingo or understanding why this over. I'm just telling you a story. And just like with Double Dutch, when the rhythm allows you to, you'll jump in and you'll be able to experience that. I find television fascinating. I find the way that it's being expressed to us, stories are being expressed, which is what I and we in the doll world, in the doll community, are doing from our sort of vantage. And so that storytelling is interesting on television. And so that over movies for me.
Okay. Well, I just want to tell you, thank you so much, Carl, for coming on to the
Handmade
Dolls App. You are a complete joy. We may have to do a part two. We may have to do a part two because I would love that.
I would love it. I would love it.
Tell everyone where they can find you on your social media platforms.
I am most easily found on my doll pages. The primary page is Carly Carl, that's CarlieKarl. And then my other page, the page that I began and then stopped and have restarted, is Carl Roberts 5. That's CarlRoberts 5. And if you are motivated and if you are attracted to my voice, what I'm attempting to put forward, please follow and give your feedback. I am involved in the exercise of growth and expansion. So anything that continues and fosters that is beneficial to me, and I look forward to.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, sis.
Have a great day, Carl.
You too.